Hello, friends. Welcome again to Tuesday Lenten devotional, my under 5 minute devotion. Wanted to say here we're in the last week of Lent, and I'm hoping to keep going with these under 5 minute devotions on Tuesday only after Lent. So, if this is meaningful to you, look for 4 minutes or so of me every Tuesday. So, starting next week. Um, I'm thinking about the scripture for today. There's a lectionary for the Holy Week, and the scripture I'll share with you here in a bit is from First Corinthians, and it talks about the way of the cross is foolishness, and that God chooses what is foolish to shame the wise. And I thought about uh, of all the people who have been influential to me as a pastor, usually we think of the pastors are the ones we're influencing others, and okay. But pastors are also influenced by the people they serve. And probably the most influential in my life was a guy named Ken. Ken died, I don't know, a year and a half ago from a heart attack. He was just maybe a couple years older than me. And I knew him at my church in Northwest Indiana. And Ken had special needs. It wasn't real obvious. Like when you'd see him, you wouldn't say, "Oh, here's a special needs person." But after talking to him for a couple minutes, that kind of became obvious. And with that, he lived with his parents, and he didn't drive, and all of those sorts of things. And but for whatever reason, Ken he liked going out to lunch with me, and we would do that every couple of weeks. We go to lunch, and sometimes he'd pick the place, sometimes I'd pick the place, and it was easy for an outsider to say, "Oh, isn't that nice what you're doing for him?" Well, I told people after he died, I said, I think he did as much for me as I did for him, because Ken was so gracious and so appreciative, and he would give you a hug, and he would tell you how much he appreciated what you were doing for him. And when you left, I mean, I always felt good. I just felt better about things. And Ken had that ability to do that, to let you know that you were loved and appreciated. And so those lunches that I did with him were as much for me as for him. Here's the scripture that I mentioned earlier. It's from First Corinthians. It says, "But God chose what the world considers foolish to shame the wise. God chose what the world considered weak to shame the strong. And God chose what the world considered low class and low life, what is considered to be nothing, to reduce what is considered to be something to nothing." And that's First Corinthians 1:27 through 28, Common English Bible. We're human, and so we get seduced by the flashy things in life, what we consider high class or important or impressive or whatever that is. And it's easy as Christians to kind of get drawn into pursuing that. And it seems to me that's the lure of Christian nationalism. If we're in the places of power and influence, if we're the ones pulling the switches and making the decisions, if we're in the corner office or whatever, then somehow like the world will be better. And I think what is getting across here in First Corinthians is that no, we follow the way of the cross, the way of suffering, the way that is rejected by the places of power in this world. It's not like we got to get there. It's no, we've got to find God's work in the places of weakness and God's presence in the place of weakness in this world. Here's my task for you this week, this Holy Week, as we journey towards the cross here, is to embrace how God shows up in the places of weakness in your world, the places that are less than impressive, the places that wouldn't necessarily get noticed by the places of importance in this world, but in those places of weakness, maybe that's where God is showing up, and look for God there. So go and find that place this week. Peace to you all. I will see you on Thursday. Thanks for being with me. Bye-bye.